The worst part isn't that I lost everything. It's that I deserve to lose it all. I'm sitting in my studio apartment, watching the financial news because I'm a masochist, apparently. There's my ex-husband, Donovan Fletcher, on the screen, being interviewed about his latest acquisition. The Chiron reads, Fletcher Industries CEO discusses $2.3 billion merger. He looks good, better than good. Success suits him in a way I never appreciated when I had the chance. The interviewer asks about his motivation, and Donovan's answer stops me cold. Everything I've built has been for my son. I want to leave him a legacy of integrity, something he can be proud of. I turn off the television and pour myself another glass of wine, even though it's barely noon. 5 years ago, I thought I was so clever. I thought I had it all figured out. Back in 2019, I was Savannah Payne Fletcher, wife of a struggling business consultant, mother to 8-year-old Camden, and absolutely convinced my world was falling apart. We lived in a modest ranch house in suburban Denver, the kind with beige everything and a mortgage that kept us awake at night. Donovan worked 60-hour weeks trying to build his consulting practice, and I worked part-time at a marketing firm while juggling Camden's school schedule. The marriage had hit that dangerous plateau where we functioned like roommates rather than lovers. Donovan would come home exhausted, grunt through dinner, help Camden with homework, and fall asleep on the couch watching whatever game was on. I'd clean up, do laundry, and lie in bed scrolling through social media, looking at other couples who seemed so much happier than us. That's when I started noticing things. Little things. Donovan working even later, taking calls in the garage, new shirts that I didn't remember buying, the cologne that smelled different. Where were you tonight? I asked one evening when he came home at nearly 10. Client dinner ran long. You know how it is, he didn't meet my eyes. Which client? The Peter Group. We're close to signing them. I nodded, but something felt off. The next day I called his office. His assistant, Jenny, seemed confused when I asked about the Peterson meeting. I don't have any Peter Group on his calendar. Are you sure about the name? That's when the paranoia really took hold. I started checking his phone when he showered, looking through his pockets, even following him once when he said he was going to the office on Saturday. He went to a Starbucks instead, sat alone for 2 hours with his laptop, then came home. When I confronted him about it, he sighed heavily. I needed quiet to work on a proposal. Camden had 3 friends over and you had music playing. I couldn't concentrate. It sounded reasonable, but by then, I'd already decided he was lying about everything. The breaking point came when I found a receipt in his jacket pocket. Dinner for 2 at Romano's, the fancy Italian place downtown. The date was a Wednesday when he told me he was working late. The total was $127, more than we usually spent on groceries for a week. I held that receipt like it was smoking gun evidence, my hands actually shaking. This was it. Proof that my husband was cheating on me, probably with some secretary or client or whoever. All those late nights, the mysterious phone calls, the distance between us, it all made perfect sense now. But instead of confronting him directly, I did something that still makes me sick to remember. I planted evidence. I bought a cheap perfume from the drugstore, something flowery and obviously feminine. I sprayed it on one of his shirts and left it balled up in the hamper. I wrote a note in handwriting that wasn't mine. I practiced for hours to make it look different, something about missing last night, and signed it M. I tucked it into his laptop bag, where I knew he'd find it, but also where I could accidentally discover it. I even went so far as to call his office and hang up when Jenny answered, just so I could accuse him of having women call him at work. The night I executed my little plan, I felt like a detective finally cracking the case. I waited until Camden was asleep, then cornered Donovan in our bedroom. I found something, I said, pulling the note from behind my back with trembling hands. His face went completely white as he read it. Savannah, I have no idea what this is. It was in your laptop bag, along with this. I threw the shirt at him. Smell it. Go ahead, smell it and tell me that's my perfume. He held the shirt to his nose, and I watched his expression change from confusion to something I'd never seen before. Not anger, devastation. You think I'm having an affair. I know you are. The late nights, the secret phone calls, dinner receipts for places you never took me. Just admit it, Donovan. Have the decency to be honest. He sat down heavily on the edge of our bed, still holding that shirt. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then he looked up at me with eyes that seemed to age 10 years in 10 seconds. The Peter Group is real, but it's not what I told you. It's not a client. His voice was so quiet, I had to strain to hear him. It's an investment group. They were considering backing my idea for a new company. I've been working on a business plan for months, trying to get the funding to start my own firm. I felt the first crack in my certainty. What? The dinner at Romano's was with potential investors. 3 of them, actually, but 1 canceled last minute. I paid because I was trying to impress them, trying to show them I was successful enough to be worth their money. He laughed bitterly. I put it on our credit card and figured I'd tell you if they said yes. If they said no, well, you'd never have to know I failed. That's not, I stammered. The late nights were me working on financial projections. The calls were with lawyers about incorporation papers. The cologne was because I wanted to smell professional when I met with investors. He held up the shirt again. But I've never seen this note before in my life, and this sure as hell isn't my cologne on here. The room felt like it was spinning. You're lying. Am I? He stood up, walked to his dresser, and pulled out a thick folder. Here's the business plan I've been working on. Here are the emails with the investment group. Here's the incorporation paperwork I filed last week. He threw the papers on the bed between us. I was going to surprise you. They said yes, Savannah. Yesterday, they said yes. I was going to tell you tonight that we were finally going to be okay. I stared at the papers, my mouth opening and closing like a fish. The business plan was detailed, professional, clearly the result of months of work. The emails went back to the previous fall. Everything he was saying was true, and everything I'd convinced myself of was wrong, but I couldn't admit it. The evidence I'd planted was right there, damning in its obviousness, and I'd already committed to this version of reality. I don't believe you, I said. This could all be fake. You could have created this to cover your tracks. Something shifted in his face then. The devastation hardened into something else. Fine, if that's what you think of me, if that's how little you trust me after 10 years of marriage, then maybe we should get divorced. Maybe we should. The words hung in the air between us like a poison cloud. I expected him to take them back, to fight for us, to somehow prove his innocence in a way that would let me save face. Instead, he nodded slowly. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. We'll figure out the details tomorrow. That's when I realized I'd made a terrible mistake, but I was too proud, too invested in being right, too afraid of admitting what I'd done to back down. The divorce proceedings were swift and ugly. I fought for primary custody of Camden, claiming Donovan was unstable and untrustworthy. I showed the judge the note and the shirt as evidence of his affair. Donovan's lawyer argued that the evidence was suspicious, possibly planted, but I stuck to my story with the conviction of someone who'd convinced herself it was true. The judge awarded me primary custody, and Donovan got alternating weekends. He moved out of our house and into a small apartment across town. I kept the house, the car, and most of our savings. I thought I'd won. The first sign that I'd made a catastrophic error came 8 months later when Donovan's new company landed its first major contract. Fletcher Consulting Solutions, according to the Business Journal article I found online, had just signed a deal with a Fortune 500 company to streamline their operations nationwide. The article included a photo of Donovan in a suit I'd never seen, shaking hands with some corporate executive. He looked confident, successful, nothing like the defeated man who'd packed his belongings into garbage bags and left our house. I told myself it was probably a fluke, that his little consulting business would fizzle out soon enough. I was wrong about that too. Over the next 2 years, Fletcher Consulting Solutions grew from a one-man operation to a staff of 20, then 50, then 100. Donovan started appearing in local business publications, talking about innovative approaches to corporate restructuring. He won awards. He gave speeches at conferences. And through it all, he never missed a weekend with Camden. Those were the weekends that really opened my eyes to what I'd lost. Camden would come home from his father's apartment bubbling with excitement about their adventures. They went hiking, built model rockets, attended baseball games. Donovan helped him with his science fair project, taught him to cook scrambled eggs, let him stay up late watching old movies. "Dad says we might go camping this summer," Camden told me one Sunday evening. "Just the two of us. He's going to teach me how to fish." I felt a stab of jealousy so sharp it took my breath away. When had I ever planned special activities with my son? When had I ever made him light up the way he did when he talked about his father? "That sounds nice, honey," I managed. "Dad says he's saving money for something special. He won't tell me what it is, but he says it's going to change everything." What Donovan was saving for, I learned 6 months later, was a custody lawyer. A very good custody lawyer. The papers arrived on a Tuesday morning in April 2022. Donovan was petitioning for full custody of Camden, claiming that I was an unfit mother who had made false accusations during our divorce proceedings. My blood ran cold as I read the allegations. Fabrication of evidence, perjury, parental alienation. The legal language was terrifying, but what scared me more was that it was all true. The worst part was Camden himself. At 11, he was old enough to have opinions about where he wanted to live, and those opinions were becoming increasingly clear. He'd started asking why he couldn't spend more time at his dad's place, why he had to come home on Sunday nights when he was having fun. "Dad's apartment is cool," he told me one evening. "He's got this big desk where I can do homework, and we make breakfast together every morning. Plus, he doesn't yell at me about video games." "I don't yell at you about video games." "Yes, you do. You're always telling me to turn them off and do something productive." He wasn't wrong. Somewhere along the way, I'd become the nagging parent while Donovan had become the fun one. It wasn't fair, I thought. I was the one who'd raised Camden for the first 8 years of his life, who'd changed his diapers and stayed up with him when he was sick. I was the one who'd sacrificed my career to be home with him. But I was also the one who'd lied about his father, and kids aren't stupid. As Camden got older, he started asking questions about the divorce that I couldn't answer honestly. "Why did you and Dad split up?" he asked one night at dinner. "It's complicated, sweetheart. Sometimes adults just grow apart." "But you said Dad was seeing another woman. What happened to her?" I nearly choked on my pasta. "What do you mean?" "Well, if Dad was with someone else, where is she now? He never talks about dating anyone. He just works and hangs out with me." I had no answer for that. How could I explain that the other woman had never existed? How could I tell my son that I'd destroyed our family based on a lie I'd created myself? The custody hearing was scheduled for September. As the date approached, I became increasingly desperate. I considered hiring a private investigator to dig up dirt on Donovan. But what would they find? That he worked hard, paid his bills on time, and spent his free time with his son. I thought about claiming he was neglectful or abusive, but Camden would contradict any lie I told. And besides, some part of me, the part that still remembered loving Donovan, couldn't bring myself to hurt him that way again. 2 weeks before the hearing, I did something I should have done years earlier. I went to see him. His new office was in a gleaming downtown building, nothing like the cramped home office where he used to take client calls. The receptionist, a polished woman in her 40s, asked if I had an appointment. "I'm his ex-wife," I said. "It's about our son." She buzzed him, and after a moment, directed me to his office on the 15th floor. Donovan looked up when I walked in, and I was struck by how much he'd changed. Not just the expensive suit or the confident posture, but something deeper. He looked like a man who'd found his purpose. "Savannah," he gestured to a chair across from his desk. "This is unexpected." I sat down, my hands trembling slightly. The office was beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, tasteful artwork, a wall of awards and recognition plaques. This was the man I'd accused of sneaking around with other women, the man I'd claimed was untrustworthy and unstable. I came to ask you to drop the custody petition. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. Why would I do that? Because I'm his mother, he needs me. Does he? Because from what I can see, he's happier and more well-adjusted now than he's ever been. His grades have improved. He's made new friends. He's joined the robotics club at school. All of that happened since I started having him more often. I wanted to argue, but he was right. Camden was thriving, and it wasn't because of anything I'd done. I made a mistake, I said. Which mistake? Falsely accusing me of adultery, lying under oath, trying to turn my son against me. His voice was calm, but I could hear the anger underneath. All of it, the words came out as a whisper. I made it all up. The note, the perfume on your shirt. I planted it because I was convinced you were cheating, but you weren't. You were trying to build something for our family, and I destroyed it. He was quiet for a long time, looking out the window at the city below. When he finally spoke, his voice was tired. Do you know what the worst part was? Not the divorce, not the custody battle, not even losing the house. It was watching you poison Camden against me, making him think his father was a liar and a cheat. Do you have any idea how that felt? I started crying then. Ugly tears that I couldn't control. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back the years I lost with my son. Sorry doesn't undo the damage you did to his ability to trust people. Please, I begged. I know I don't deserve it, but please don't take him away from me completely. I love him. He's all I have. Donovan turned back to me, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd married. He's all you have because you threw away everything else, Savannah. Your marriage, your family, your integrity. You did that. I know, but I can change. I can be better. Can you? Because this isn't the first time you've lied to get what you wanted. Remember when we were dating and you told me your ex-boyfriend was stalking you? I found out later you'd been calling him, begging him to take you back, until the week before we got engaged. My blood ran cold. I'd forgotten about that. Had convinced myself it was different somehow. Or when you told Camden's teacher that I couldn't make the parent conference because I was traveling for work, when really you just didn't want me there because you were afraid I'd contradict your story about his behavior problems at home. Each example hit like a physical blow. I could see the pattern now, the way I'd been rewriting reality to suit my needs for years without even realizing it. I have a company to run, Donovan said. I have 68 employees depending on me. Clients who trust me to deliver results, one who deserves a stable home. I can't afford to have chaos in my life anymore. So that's it? You're just going to cut me out completely? I'm going to do what's best for Camden. If you can prove that having you in his life is what's best for him, then we'll talk. But if you ever lie about me again, if you ever try to manipulate him or use him as a weapon against me, I will make sure you never see him again. Do you understand? I nodded through my tears. The custody hearing is in 10 days. If you want to fight it, that's your choice. But I'm not backing down this time. I didn't fight it. How could I? Everything Donovan had said was true, and the evidence spoke for itself. Camden was happier with his father, healthier, more confident. I was the chaos in his life, not the stability. The judge awarded Donovan primary custody. It was exactly the reverse of our original arrangement, and exactly what I deserved. That was 3 years ago. Since then, I've watched from the sidelines as Donovan's company grew into Fletcher Industries, a multi-million-dollar corporation with offices in 12 cities. He's been featured on magazine covers, invited to speak at Harvard Business School, recognized as Entrepreneur of the Year by 3 different organizations. And Camden? He's 14 now, captain of his robotics team, honor roll student, confident and kind in ways that remind me of his father. He still comes to see me on weekends, but our relationship has never fully recovered from the damage I did. There's a politeness to our interactions, a careful distance that breaks my heart every time. "How was school this week?" I ask him over pizza on Friday nights. "Good, we won the regional robotics competition." "That's wonderful, honey. I'm so proud of you." "Thanks. Dad's taking me to nationals next month. It's in California." And there it is. The reminder that all the important moments in his life happen when he's not with me. Donovan is the parent who goes to competitions, who helps with college planning, who teaches him to drive. I'm the weekend visitor in my own son's life. The worst part is that I can't even blame Donovan for it. He's never badmouthed me to Camden, never tried to turn him against me the way I once tried to turn Camden against him. He's simply been the better parent, and Camden has responded accordingly. Last month, Camden told me he'd been accepted to MIT's summer program for gifted students. I was thrilled for him, of course, but also devastated when I realized I learned about it secondhand. "Why didn't you tell me you were applying?" I asked. He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "Dad helped me with the application. I figured you knew." "I want to be part of these things, Camden. I want to know what's happening in your life." "You are part of it," he said, but his tone suggested otherwise. That night, after I'd dropped him back at Donovan's house, I sat in my car outside their place and watched through the living room window. Father and son were building something together, a model airplane, maybe, or some kind of engineering project. They were laughing, completely absorbed in their work, and I realized that this was what I'd destroyed. Not just a marriage, but a family, not just trust, but the foundation of everything that mattered. The financial news segment ends, and I reach for the remote to turn off the TV, but before I can, there's another story about Fletcher Industries. Donovan has just announced a new charitable foundation focused on providing STEM education to underprivileged kids. "My son inspired this initiative," he tells the interviewer. "He's shown me that given the right opportunities and support, young people can accomplish incredible things. I want to make sure every child has access to those opportunities, regardless of their circumstances." The camera cuts to footage of Camden at some kind of science fair, explaining his project to a panel of judges. He's poised, articulate, passionate about his work. He looks so much like his father at that age, back when I first met Donovan and thought I'd found my happily ever after. I think about calling him Camden, not Donovan. It's been 2 weeks since our last conversation, and I miss his voice. But what would I say? "How are you doing at school? Are you excited about MIT? Did you see your father on the news?" All the important conversations in his life happen elsewhere now. I pour another glass of wine instead and walk out onto my tiny balcony. The Phoenix sunset is beautiful, all orange and pink across the desert sky, but it feels wasted on someone like me. Someone who had everything and threw it away because she couldn't trust the good things in her life. The truth is, I don't know if I've really changed. I want to believe I have, that I've learned from my mistakes, but wanting and being are different things. I still catch myself crafting stories to make myself look better, still find excuses for my failures that put the blame on someone else. Just last week, I told my neighbor that I rarely see my son because my ex-husband is vindictive and controlling. It wasn't until after I said it that I realized I was still lying, still rewriting history to cast myself as the victim. Maybe some people don't deserve second chances. Maybe some mistakes are too big to forgive, even when you're only forgiving yourself. But Camden deserves better than the mother I've been. And if I can't be better for me, maybe I can try to be better for him. It's probably too late to repair the damage I've done, but it's not too late to stop making it worse. Tomorrow I'm going to call him, not to make small talk or ask superficial questions about school, but to tell him the truth about what happened between his parents. He's old enough now to understand, old enough to make his own decisions about what our relationship should look like going forward. And maybe, if I'm very lucky and work very hard, someday he'll be able to forgive me. Not because I deserve it, but because he's already a better person than I've ever been. The sun disappears behind the mountains, and I go back inside to figure out what I'm going to say to my son. It won't be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is, but it's time to stop running from the truth about who I am and what I've done. It's time to finally grow up.